All right. Come on in, take a seat, everybody. We got our first official RecCon panel happening today. So welcome everybody to our panel, which is all about creating polished experiences in Rec Room. For those of you who don't know, my name is Utinni. I am a employee here at Rec Room, a fellow creator, and love building and making stuff, and make a lot of cool things here in Rec Room. We got a lot of cool things we're going to be making coming soon for y'all. But anyway, this panel, though, is about a new experience that is coming out. But first, let's define what is a polished experience here in Rec Room. So for all you, a polished experience is a gamer experience that has a high level of refinement, quality, and attention to detail throughout the whole piece. This leads to a smooth, immersive, and enjoyable experience for all of you, the players. And this is something that all of us want to be thinking about when we're building our rooms and building experiences, is how can we make it a polished experience? And to talk about this, we are here to reveal and go into a deeper dive what was announced yesterday at the keynote, that we are doing a partnership with AJR, which is known as the AJR Experience. This is a new game that is coming out on November 2nd, and it is a celebration for AJR's new album, which is coming out on November 3rd. So this game is all about coming into the world of AJR, where you're literally going to go into a lot of their iconic set pieces and things from their past videos, along while also getting to hear some of the new music from the new album. And all while you're doing this, you're riding on an upside-down trapper hat that Jack wears and firing targets, trying to get the highest score possible. So it's a really fun game, and we think it's going to be a really cool experience you all love. And this also was a new partnership that we did in collaboration with IconINK here. So we've done some collaborations with other build teams in the past, with like Rec Rocks, and then also we did Fourth Fridays. And this is a continuation of that. And this is something that we hope to be doing a lot more in the future as different projects come up. And this one seemed like the perfect one. So I am here with IconINK that helped us with the building and also creative on this. Why don't you guys all give yourselves a quick introduction?
All right, I'll go first. I'm Meg, one of the co-founders of IconINK. I do a little bit of everything, building, circuits, Unity, all of it.
Yeah, hi, I'm Brandon. I'm pleased to be on this stage with all y'all, and I do a lot of building for IconINK.
Hi, my name is Pooks, and I'm also one of the other co-founders of IconINK, and I primarily do circuits work as well as some Unity work with particle creation and such.
Hi, I'm Kabluna, and I'm like a classic builder, like really old, so I do building and some more building, like actual buildings. Mm-hmm.
Excellent building, yeah.
Awesome. So let's just hop into some questions. And I mean, I think the first one would be, how did you all start as a group, and what are some of the highlights from your past rooms? I know you all have been building in here for quite a while in Rec Room.
It all started long ago when there was a young Meg who had never built a thing. And I got accepted to a contest build team, and Pooks happened to be on it. We got along really well, started building together, and snowballed into IconINK.
Cool. What was that room way back then?
Rec Studios Tour. Oh, man.
Ooh,
that one's
I remember
one.
that one. Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah,
cool. That's awesome. And and why don't you guys talk, because I know that definitely you've been making some other, like, you guys have done some pretty cool like game type rooms in the past. I mean, one of my personal favorites obviously is Narant, which is an actual like deck building game in game.
Yep,
you guys should definitely check it out. But what are some of the other rooms that you guys have built too, just in case players out there want to check them out?
Yeah, so I guess we can touch on Luminary Rush, was one of our more recent games, which is an immersive board game experience, similar to movies like Jumanji or The Thura. That came in first in the. Ooh, I'm blanking on the contest, Brandon. Can you recall?
Solstice.
The solstice.
Solstice contest. That's right. We took first in the game category for that. And I know the quest. I wasn't involved in the quest that IconINK made. If you wanted to
Space
touch on
Camp! Space Camp! Yeah, we made Space Camp, which was a super fun immersive quest that we really enjoyed. I was also for a contest, as you might tell, we like building for contests. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I love Space Camp. I was a fan of the movie Space Camp from the '80s, and so I was
That
like,
was our
"Whoa."
inspiration for sure.
Awesome, awesome. All right, and now, of course, we're moving on to getting to build this new experience for AJR. So, um, like I said, this is all about like going into the world of like AJR with the visuals and everything. So, why don't you all explain maybe a little bit more about the experience and what's happening during it?
Okay, well, yeah, as mentioned, it is a ride where you shoot targets, and it's about journeying through each individual AJR song and kind of what those songs mean um, behind the lyrics and more into their world. One of the fun things about doing these experiences is I kind of have to become an overnight super fan of whoever we're working with, and it was really fun with this one to be able to really dive really headfirst into all of their music videos, into their social media content, and kind of learn what they try to bring out in their music so that I could try and emulate that as best as we could, bringing people into their world.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's really a good key, especially for when you're starting for like, like polish always starts at the beginning and really knowing the material of what you're working on is a fantastic way to just hone in on, filling your mind with that world and helping you to understand the subtleties of whatever it is that you're creating. So that's really, really a good point. And then obviously, you all were working with a collaboration with my team here at Rec Room. So, what was your experience like working with Rec Room to create this experience?
Did you want to start?
Yeah, let me just looking at my notes here. So yeah, no, wasn't our first time working here with Rec Room, as was said in the past, but we always have a blast getting to work with Rec Room. We love these partnerships. And I know, Meg, you wanted to touch on kind of the step-by-step process, but I'll get into it first, where it's great getting the opportunity to work with Rec Room and moving along. And we've worked, I know some of the previous people that we've worked with were on this project, and then we got to work with you, and that was new, so it was great getting to work with some new teams here at Rec Room, so we had an absolute blast, and we're very excited to see what the future holds for collaborations and projects and such, but I'm going to throw this now over to Meg to talk more about the process we went through.
Yeah, the process is always interesting when you're separated from the original content, so there's layers in between with Rec Room. And honestly, I think that the best thing to take away from something like that is just that to be flexible in everything that you do, being able to mold things around, roll with the punches, as they say, and things like that is really the best way to make a good build experience between both sides. Because sometimes you're throwing curveballs and you just got to roll with it, and that's a really key point. And I want to say that it's great to be able to work with Rec Room because we're able to do these incredible experiences that we would never have had the opportunity to. Never would have been able to collaborate with AJR without that. And it's just an absolute blast to be able to do that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And I'm hoping too, there's stuff that we were able to share with you guys too to help you, because I mean, one of the things that my team is all about and stuff that we'll be coming out with in the future as well is, learnings that we're getting too is we're building in the game as well, because just like, everyone here, we're building in the game, we're creating stuff, we're learning stuff as well. And that's a lot of things that my team wants to share out to all of you and all of the players out there as well, so that, we can all be building the best, like most fun, awesome, polished games and experiences here in Rec Room.
Yeah, as we learn
Um,
Unity and Blender and things, like your team has been able to come up with like, terms that we hadn't even heard of, and then we look into them and we're able to implement and make such a better experience just because we're able to learn from each other with the experience, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll talk a little bit more about that with the building using MakerPen and Rec Room Studio for sure. But first off, let's talk a little bit more about the imaginary world of AJR. You know, obviously it's so vivid and imaginative. But I would say, like, what are some of the challenges that you all had when we were bringing this world to life in Rec Room, and how did you overcome those?
I can
Yeah.
take this one. Yeah, it's a very imaginative project. And a lot of this stuff is, very specific to AJR. So we wanted to, as we were designing this, wherever you look in the room, you want to have something cool that kind of reminds you of AJR, which means you can't just throw some, random chair or bench in there. You really have to think about what is this bench or what is this chair or whatever, what do you need to do to this to make sure it really fits in with this environment and brings out that excitement of the AJR world. So that was definitely a challenge for me, and it involves a lot of thinking and like what could I do a little bit differently to make this more unexpected, and technical challenge of like some of these are curvy complex shapes, and so being able to use Studio for this project was a great way to overcome some of that, to get some really wacky shapes.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that's a really a good point, Brandon. Of like being able to think about like everything you're making, like how does this fit into the world? How is it cohesive in the world? Because you want everything to feel consistent and cohesive, so that it's a full seamless environment and an immersive environment. So I think that's a really good point. And going into that and talking about creative, what can you guys explain about your creative process and how each step led to the final polished experience?
Yeah,
Who
I
wants
mean,
to start?
I can start that. So yeah, we definitely have steps we take when we tackle such a large project. One of our first things we do is, of course, as Meg said, we immerse ourselves in the topic. So I know the first couple of days was just finding every little piece of AGR media and video, music video, concert, live recording we could, and just watching over and over and getting to really understand their style. Then, of course, we focus on timelines. Then we get a very structured timeline. We want to know when we want to have things done by, because it's a very large project, and going in without that kind of narrowed scope, you'll just find yourself working on and just keep adding more layers and keep adding more mechanics and effects and more artwork, because you always have new ideas. But if you stick to that timeline, that's kind of our second thing. We get the timeline in place, and then we kind of try and hit the ground running with getting gray boxing and such. But that's the more build side, which isn't my wheelhouse. So if Meg wanted to talk about kind of how building starts and that creative process, or someone else wants to chime in.
Yeah, and to be fair, one of the first things that we do try to do is get the core mechanics in, so that we know exactly what it's going to look like, and how the loop is gonna act with everything. And then we can really start gray boxing the different areas, trying to figure out what kind of transitions that you want, so that you make sure that everything does smoothly move into the next areas. But the key with the building side of things, with making sure that things are polished, is iterations. The first time you make something, it's probably not going to be what the end user is going to see. You really have to get it in the world, because as soon as you bring it from Unity into Rec Room, it looks completely different. And JB or Brandon, if you guys want to talk about the iterations we went through.
Right. So with something like this, with like building something off of reference, or like something that's existed, what I did basically was take anything related to AJR, or like anything in their media, and basically build every single thing I could find and see what could stick, and just like show it in front of everybody, and they would just add it to the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I will say, Jabloon over here had their own testing subroom, and we would go in, and there would be all these crazy particle effects and big giant meshes of AJR logos, and you never knew what you were going to find when you hopped into Jabloona's testing world.
Yeah,
Cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I think again, you guys bring up a really good point. It's like I think that was the one thing I really loved seeing on this collaboration was the fact that you guys got to an MVP of the game very early on. You know,
Yeah.
we were able to go in and yeah, it was just like gray boxes, but we were able to hop into like a box cart and have a, you know, I think then it was just a paintball gun.
Mhm.
And you know, and we were able to
Mhm.
go through though and actually get a sense of like, okay, is this a good game? Is it a good experience? Does it work? Does the scoring work? Um, and that's something that really is important for creating a polished experience because early on you want to get, and that's what's called the MVP experience or the MVP uh, point because it allows you to know, well,
Is it
one,
fun?
is the game fun? Because if you're not having
Yeah.
fun at that point, it doesn't matter how beautiful and amazing you make the room or the experience, it's still not going to be fun. It'll be beautifully boring, but um, you know, but I think that's the thing is like really honing in on is it fun, and finding that fun. And once you got that fun, that's when you're like, all right, let's go. And I remember we were in it and we were just having fun, like shooting all the targets and listening to the music. And I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun experience for sure. Um, so obviously we've talked about, bringing the world of AJR in, the creative process. So now let's actually talk about the building. So I know that this is a room that was built both with MakerPen and Rec Room Studio. So why don't we talk about how using both of those tools together actually has benefited this project?
I mean, yeah, sure.
You can start, yeah.
So yeah, so I definitely come from the building with MakerPen background, as we all did before Studio came along. So it's a great way to get out some ideas really quickly in the game, and kind of sketch in quotes, kind of what you're looking for. So like there was one area where I created some outlines with MakerPen and then passed it off to Meg to actually do some modeling in Blender to get that put together. And it was just a really great way, especially when you're working with specific layouts in game, you can just kind of trace it out with the MakerPen, and that's really great. The other thing I found great for it was one of the kind of key art pieces went through a lot of iterations on this project. And as part of that process, I was actually in the game with the MakerPen, pulling items out of one version of it into the other and kind of making like a mashup of the two in the game as a kind of creative exploration, which was really helpful. And, of course, being able to see in the game at scale and realize, oh, I can't see anything out of this thing I'm working on. I need to change the proportions of it. It's like a lot of really great things about being in game and working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say, even like with our team too, when we're building it, Rec Room Studio is an amazing tool. It's allowing us to bring a lot of new ideas and visual things into Rec Room. But also at the end of the day, there's so much amazing stuff you can build with the MakerPen. And obviously we announced, yesterday Rooms 2.0, which will be coming out later on for people to try out. And I think that's just going to continue, that as well. And also just being able to be in a room with all of your friends, building together and sharing ideas.
Collaboration.
I think that collaboration exactly is just a really good way of going. So it's like I think we're finding it as well too. Like we always start when we're building a room. We always start in a room with MakerPens, blocking stuff out, building things. And and sometimes there's some things that are just better to do in MakerPen than I would want to do in Unity. One case right now is we're doing collisions on a project that we're working on, and it's like I could go in Unity and be flying around and putting all the box colliders in, and it's not as intuitive. It's just going in game in VR or in screen mode, using the ACM mode, and just actually drawing them in and placing them. It's just so much more intuitive for me. So I think, and I think for many people who are starting to transition into using Rec Room Studio as well, definitely see that. Like there's definitely the strengths for both of them, and it really helps to create a nice balance between using both, which will help just level up your building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I also
Oh, yeah,
think
go
that
ahead.
there's the art of the MakerPen. I don't believe is dead. With
Oh
Rec Room
no, not
Studio.
at all.
No.
For instance,
Yeah.
we have a exclusively maker pen builder on our team, Skip Von Swish. He's absolutely a fantastic modeler, and he did everything that he contributed to the project was purely maker pen. But then, of course, we have Jabluna, who everything he contributed was not maker pen. He did all Rec Room Studio stuff this time around.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So
that's
Yeah,
also the thing too, because oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Speaking
Bro.
on the like back to the ink and the room things with maker pen. Part of my process before was really ultra realistic or detailed experiences, but that always kind of clashed with ink and how much I can make.
Yeah.
So in studio, I was able to really go all out.
Yeah.
mhm.
I think it's I think it's a good thing about making polished experiences is it really does come down to sometimes it's like what is the right tool for whatever it is that you're envisioning and what you're creating, and it just is trying to figure that out and knowing that both of them are tools and they're there in our sandbox for us to use, and they're equally powerful and they equally can make amazing stuff. And so it's just finding what works best for the project that you're doing. I think that's part of what we're doing here is we want to give people as much variety to be able to create what they're basically envisioning in their heads. So let's move forward into that though and talk a little bit more about the polishing process and its importance, obviously as we were finishing off this project. So, we started with the gray box. We got to an MVP. You guys started building stuff and we got really close to release, which is now about a month away. So what do you look out for as you're finessing the visual and circuit gameplay elements of it?
I think a big portion of it is two main things for me personally. Immersive sounds is really where we look at the end, is making sure that we have sound effects that really react with the environment and what you're experiencing at that time. It adds a bigger layer of things, and layering those sounds on top of each other can really add even more immersion into it. So not just one sound for this one thing, maybe try two sound effects that are on top of each other to make a unique sound for that specific part of it. Lots of things that you can try there, and I think that sounds are really important. And then also play your game. That's the biggest thing that I can't stress enough. If you don't play your game, you're not going to see what the other players are going to see. Run around in your environment. In every device that you have, yes.
Yeah,
play
that's
your
a
own
really
game.
good point. Yeah.
And because it's only when I'm running around my environment that I go, oh, that plant, it's floating. Again, I thought I fixed that. And making sure that every little detail that the people are probably going to notice is really in line, because you don't want them noticing those types of things because they shouldn't be there. So it's about not noticing things.
Yeah. And I think, as you're going and you're practicing, playing through it and trying things, I mean, for everyone out there, remember, we're on so many different platforms. So to try it out on as many as you can. And if you have friends that are on other, like, maybe you have a friend that's on Xbox or on PlayStation, maybe you have a friend who has an iPhone or an Android, bring them in to test these things out and try getting groups of people in there to test out the rooms, because this is where you can find out, like, are there any issues with, CPU heat, network heat, crashing? The other thing too is bring people in who don't know anything about the room and just see how do they react to the room? How do they go in? Is it clear that they know what the objective of the game is? Is it clear that they know what to do? Are they able to break out of the room, Yeah.
And also be incredibly open to their feedback, because you got to remember, you've been staring at this project for hours and hours and hours and hours, and that is a fresh pair of eyes, and that is priceless. So definitely be open to that feedback from the people who come in and play your game, because they might say something and you'll think, what? That doesn't make sense because I designed it this way, but be open to that.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add to this, or?
And,
Yeah,
we kind of touched on this. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we kind of touched on this like earlier with the things to look different between studio and say actual rec room. Things to look really different between studio rec room and every single device that's compatible. So you have to like go in on everything and see if it looks just right before you ship it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just going to add one thing that I think is valuable with polishing is kind of an idea of polishing proportionally. So for some parts of the experience, if you're going to be seeing something a lot and players are going to be interacting with it a lot, focus your time and energy into really polishing that piece. Work on iterating and adding extras. Really trying to make that amazing. But if it's, some bush off in the distance, don't dedicate 20 hours of time polishing to make sure that that bush is flawless. It's about being proportionate and trying to do your polishing where the most users are going to see it.
Yeah, that's a
For
good
sure.
point.
Definitely.
Time is not unlimited, so, it's prioritizing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I guess to close this question out, I'll finish, I guess, with the circuit side on polishing. One thing me and my circuit counterpart, Shrewy, who unfortunately couldn't make it here today, what we do at the end when we're in the polishing phase for circuits is we go in and we try and play our game or our experience as incorrectly as possible. Because we've created the experience, we created the core loop, we know how it's supposed to work, and we go in and we play it the way it's supposed to be played, so of course it's going to work. And of course, for this project, we couldn't bring in too many outside people to help us test that, so we went in, and if the game wanted you to run forward, we would run backwards, and we just see what happens. And doing that, most of the time showed us edge cases and issues where some players could get stuck, or like Utinni mentioned, there could be heat or networking issues. So really just going in there and playing the game as it's not intended to be played can often find you those edge cases and weird things that happen with your circuits and your code that aren't intended, but then you can go back and fix them so that no matter how the person plays your game or interacts with your room, they'll always have a smooth experience.
Yeah. And I think the thing too is know that like once you hit publish on a room or an experience as well, know that there's probably going to be some bugs that pop up that you didn't even know existed or happened, because you're going from testing where maybe you'll have 20, maybe even up to like 30 people coming in trying it out. You want to try to get as many people to test before you publish. But once you have now hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people coming into your room to play it, there's going to be a lot of crazy things that could potentially come up. And so it's just, again, it's, especially like within the first week or two of publishing a room, you want to really make sure that you have a area where people could also tell you if they've run into issues, like a way of reporting either on a Discord server or messaging somebody, one of the owners or co-owners in the room. We have our clipboards, where people can write feedback and leave it in there. So going and checking those, that is a great way to know if there's bugs so that you can go in and do some triage and, basically fixing bugs, hunting them down, and, continuing to polish and finesse as you're going to make a stable, super stable version of the experience. So yeah, that is all really good information, y'all. So I really appreciate you sharing that. The last question I really want to ask is really a question for a lot of our builders and creators out there who maybe are just learning or getting really good. But what advice would you give to upcoming creators to help them create strong, polished experiences?
Yeah. So I'll say one thing that I think is very interesting is that polish can be done at any scope of project. It doesn't matter if it is a tiny little game or a tiny little room that you're creating. We went to this lovely little room last night, actually, that was featured, and it was just a small room, but the polish was there. It had so much ambience. It had so much just everything that I look for in an experience. Doesn't matter the size or scope of the project, polish can be there, and look for it.
Yeah, I
Anybody
mean, I
else?
guess to like piggyback off that, like if you're just starting out with creating in Rec Room, or you've been creating for a while, like, as Meg said, scale of what you're polishing doesn't really matter, but having a polish does matter. So, choose your, experience that you're trying to create with that in mind. If you're, a solo builder, don't take on a 10-room, sub-room, experience and have people crashing partway through, or something like that. I think it's important to have it polished and playable and really nice so that people can enjoy it and want to come back rather than, crashing out.
Hmm.
Awesome.
I'll I guess piggyback off of what you two said. Make sure when you have that polish, make sure you're looking at scope. So even if it's a small little project, so you're making a dorm skin, or even just a little invention you want to put on the invention store to start branching out into building, make sure you set yourself a timeline. So for the first 4 days, you're going to work on making the invention. So you're making a plush teddy bear. You make the teddy bear, and then give yourself a day to look it over, polish it, make sure all your tubes are in the right spot, take a good picture for the invention store, get a description, those polish things. Always make sure you have some kind of timeline so that you're not constantly in that polish phase. Because if you look at your invention or your dorm skin, you're always going to find something you think you can polish more or add to it. If you have that deadline in your mind and you have that timeline set up ahead of time, you'll know that you want to be polishing during this time period, and then you're going to hit that deadline, and you're going to look at it, and you're going to say, yep, that's the creation. I polished it. I gave it my all, and then you're going to ship it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you'll just keep polishing and polishing and polishing, and you'll just get stuck in a loop. We've been there.
And I think that's where Utini's comment about a minimally viable product, or like an MVP, having something like that planned out that you're shooting for on a timeline can be really helpful, so you don't have feature creep where you just keep adding more and more stuff that you're trying to polish off. So,
Yeah. Awesome. It's all really good stuff. So I think we've all said the word polished probably a million times today. So hopefully everyone's understanding polished experiences are important. So a reminder to everybody here, again, we have the AJR experience coming out on November 2nd here in Rec Room, built by IconINK. I think we have a little bit of time here. IconINK. I'm sorry. You guys are just so iconic, What can I say?
Yes.
We've got some time to answer a couple questions. If you guys want to add some questions into the chat, I'll take a look. There was a couple, though, that I did see as we were going through. One thing someone who was asking was about if we're recording. We are recording all these panels, so these will be up on YouTube at a later time, so you can come back and watch them if there's any information you want to get. The other thing, too, is all of these fine folk have buttons in the back of the panel afterwards that you can all go to if you want to see the stuff they've worked on, subscribe to them. And then the other thing, too, is Rec Room Studio is open, I think, for everyone to check out if they want. So anybody who is able to, download, anybody could download Rec Room. Unity. It's free at first, and there's a lot of great information tutorials online that you can check out if that's something people are into. The other thing is, obviously, we'll have some panels later on, but we've got classes here at Rec Room, which are great to get in, start learning about how to build with the Maker Pen and creating experiences. Again, you don't need, Maker Pen, Rec Room Studio. It's all about what's up here in your head and your heart and what you want to create. And, finding the right tool is what will allow you to create a good polished experience. And you can do a polished experience right here in Rec Room without Rec Room Studio or using Rec Room Studio. Again, it's finding which one is the best. So, sorry guys, the questions are going really fast. I'm trying to see. So again, like, what advice would you get to somebody new? I would say, go start checking out the classes. Trunks is going to give a panel, I believe, on Sunday about classes here at Rec Room that you can sign up. Someone was asking if IconINK needs somebody if you need help testing rooms. Let's see. Any
Sometimes
more
to the
questions?
point, sometimes we do tests with the people in our Discord. It's not super often, but when we need people, that's where we pull from. If you want to join our Discord, that's where we pull people to test things.
Yeah.
Oh, Meg, I saw one.
Somebody.
What is gray boxing?
Oh,
Oh,
that's a good
that's a good.
question.
Yeah.
lovely
Good catch,
question.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So gray boxing is a term that is typically used in the industry for a super basic version of the level. So when you're going through and creating simply the level design, you can create a great level design in squares, just blocks, cubes, and things like that. That cube down the line might be a building, a super detailed building that works for your background and things like that. This other shape could end up being a rock. There's no end to what the shapes themselves could end up being once the actual builders get involved to make the models. But the idea is to get the flow of the level design down and then fill it in with all of the details later. It really gives you a feel of everything in order to change the circuits to make sure that you've got your core loop integrated properly. It just makes everything go a lot smoother as you move from gray block into modeling. It just makes everything go super fast.
Yeah. Again, when you're building, you want to think of it as starting very, very broad and working down into the details. If you're starting a room out and you're already right here, it's not right. You want to start very vague, very broad, and you work in, and that's what the gray box is. The gray box is out here. It's where the sky's the limit. You guys are trying things. You're not putting a lot of time into the actual building, but you're putting a lot of time into the thought and thinking about, like, what are we going to do here? How are we going to place this stuff? How should this layout look? And then when you have your MVP, usually that's still in a gray box where you're playing the game and you're able to easily make changes and tweaks before you actually are putting the final art on top of it. So gray boxing is a very, very good step, very important step for development and creating things here. So yeah, I think that's it. So again, everybody, thank you for coming to our panel about polished experiences, which is again rooms that are just taken to that high level of refinement, quality, and attention to detail throughout the whole piece. I hope this has been helpful for all you out there. I want to see what you're all going to be making. And don't forget that the AJR experience comes out on November 2nd. We will have a door in a rec center for you guys to hop in. And I hope you all have fun playing it. And thank you, IconINK. Woo!
Woo!
Ooh, yes, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having us, seriously.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Woo!
Bye. Thanks for coming.